Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina, a holistic approach for mental, physical, and spiritual well being so you can become the best version of yourself. Welcome to Transparent with Tina. I am Tina Marx, your host. My guest today is a best-selling author, counselor, speaker, and leader in the personal development field. She's been recognized by Psychology Today, Time Business News, the New York Post, Yahoo News, Success Magazine, CEO Weekly, and many other outlets for her cutting-edge research on the subconscious mind and personal transformation. She has a PhD and is certified in over 13 modalities, including cognitive behavioral therapy, NLP, somatic processing, and trauma work. Her scientific research, personal experience, and compassionate approach led her to founding the Gibson Integrated Attachment Theory. All right, you've accomplished a lot. And when I went on your website, I'm like, wow, she's got it's just like a shop with all these shiny objects in there. And all this stuff is right up my field because you know what? I'm thinking because, recently I interviewed somebody who is a somatic practitioner. You do all of it. Then there's NLP, all the therapies and the trauma work, which, the reason I searched you out is because I know how important this is for my life. And now I feel like I'm on the other side. So, okay.
That's beautiful.
But you primarily talk about attachment styles, which we're going to get into in a minute. But I want to know how you got into this work to begin with.
So I got into this work because I think like most people who get into this sort of line of work is I struggled. And I think, funnily enough, I wouldn't have said this at the time, but I was blessed to struggle at a very young age.
Mm.
So I was blessed to start asking questions and researching and seeking very early on in my life. So I was a fearful avoidant attachment style, so that you'll sometimes hear it referred to as disorganized. But that meant I was the really chaotic one out of all the attachment styles. And I grew up, and I think I just internalized a lot of my environment. My environment was a tough one, and there was a lot of just really intense fighting and chaos, and just a lot of hard things growing up. And I was very sensitive, so I internalized a lot of it. And I had one coping mechanism. It was to play soccer. And I had a really bad knee injury in high school in one of my scouting years. And so my whole internal thing was like, I'm going to get a soccer scholarship. I'm going to move to a different country. I'm going to kind of get peace and a break from my home. And I think I always felt chronically unsafe at home. And so what ended up happening is I had knee surgery. Felt like that coping mechanism was taken away. Definitely couldn't cope with it and
Oh,
became
because you couldn't play
immediately
soccer anymore.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I did event like I healed from it and I ended up getting a soccer scholarship to a D1 school, but it wasn't like what I had hoped or, at the capacity that I was looking for. But in the end, I what really happened is that I became addicted to opioids.
Mm.
So I was prescribed painkillers. I didn't even know what addiction was. At the time, I mean, I did at a high level, but not like addiction to painkillers. I didn't even know you could get addicted to painkillers, but I took them and it made me feel, I guess, in a sense, more safe at home,
Mhm,
more
mhm.
comfortable, more regulated and numb. And that comfortable numbness was like, oh, my life is easier. And so it went from me like continuously saying I had knee pain to get more prescriptions to eventually finding somebody who I could buy them from to then finding many people. And then, the
How old
throes
were
of
you at
addiction
this
were pretty
point?
quick. So just before I turned 15. So it was like
Wow, okay.
a week and a half or so before my 15th birthday. And um, that I actually had the surgery and then, really
Did
was in
you
the thick of
say that you
addiction.
would actually do like harm yourself to feel so you could get more opiates?
Not harm myself. I would just say that I was in more pain than I was
Saying you're on
to,
more. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah, to get them prescribed. And
Yeah.
then eventually I sought out somebody who would sell them to me. And um, I think if you've ever known anybody in active addiction or been in
Oh,
close
yeah.
proximity to somebody, I mean, it's like I know it's so difficult on the people around you. It's terrible for the people around you. I've been on both ends of the continuum at different times of my life, but there's a special kind of like torture to being an addict. Like there's a special kind of like you tell yourself over and over again, I'm gonna get clean, I'm gonna change my life, I know I'm hurting people around me by doing this. I know I need to stop, I'm gonna stop. And you tell yourself everything under the sun, and it's just like you are so helpless to yourself. And it's just the most to me, that was one of the hardest parts is that I would tell myself over and over and over again, like, I'm going to change, I'm going to stop, this is the last time. And you tell yourself that thousands and thousands of times.
And
Yeah.
every
And
time you say that, you almost set yourself up for failure.
yeah,
Because, right?
absolutely.
Because every time
Mhm.
you relapse, which is part of getting clean and sober, right? It's part of the process. You beat yourself up, you beat yourself up. What does that cause? Guilt and shame, which are like the two lowest frequencies on the emotional scale. They're even
Exactly.
lower than fear, right? So, yeah, okay, so keep going.
Yeah, so at the time it was terrible. At the time it was so painful and so difficult, but looking back, it's like one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life because what ended up happening is I was high functioning enough. I was like in school, I was playing soccer in university. I kept getting in trouble. Things I was hanging on by a thread. And I was in a psychology class and I was thinking at this moment, like, I'm going to quit everything. Like, I can't do this. Like, I was going into a psych class to be like, I can't even, why am I here? I
You
should leave
couldn't manage
school. I need to
anything
figure
anymore.
stuff
Yeah.
out. Yeah. And I had tried like outpatient rehab and inpatient rehab both in like in summers between semesters. And nothing worked. I tried AA meetings, NA meetings. I went to situations where I remember being in a meeting one day and somebody being like, "I'm on day 100 of sobriety and it's so hard." And I remember being like, "I'm 18. Like, am I going to struggle with this for the rest of my life? Like, is it going to be this hard every day for the rest of my life? Like, there just has to be a better way."
Mhm.
And I was in a psychology class one day and somebody said to me right before this sort of rock bottom in my life, they said, "Your conscious mind can't outwill or overpower your subconscious mind." And to me,
Your
in that
conscious mind
moment,
cannot overpower your subconscious mind.
yeah,
Bingo. Bingo. There it
exactly.
is.
That was exactly, it was like this lightning bolt. Like, oh my gosh. So, like, it's not about me being weak or because I would beat myself up like crazy. I was so harsh and mean to myself in my internal dialogue and really struggled, honestly, at the time with like just a lot of like self-loathing, like just this like anger and bitterness towards myself. Like, I can't figure it out. And a lot of just
What's
harshness. And
wrong with me? What's
yeah,
wrong with me? Everybody
totally.
else seems to have it together, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, oh, it's not about that. It's about that my conscious mind obviously is the one saying, okay, get sober, figure it out. And my subconscious mind has different motives. And so it was like, I was like, oh my God, I need to know. Like, I need to figure everything out. And so I went on this like binging process of like finding anything I could on the internet, or I mean, this is like 15 plus years ago now. And I went through everything I could find on the internet, got books, read about the subconscious mind, tried to do things. And of course, this was like I was still using a lot during that time. So there's ups and downs. It wasn't this like quick, sudden, I changed everything the moment I figured it out. But
Right.
I just became obsessed with learning about the subconscious mind. And eventually that understanding of what I needed to rewire and change within myself, my internal dialogue, my belief systems about myself, about the world, about other people, because of things that I acquired from childhood. Learning to regulate my nervous system and the relationship between the mind body experience, learning to understand my needs at a subconscious level, these deep personal drivers, and how to actually fill those sort of buckets, if you will, of my own needs to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen my sense of self and identity and create more fulfillment. I started diving into these things and it was so crazy to me because I felt like for the first time that maybe I'd ever felt in my life, I felt peace
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
happiness, like fulfillment. And I was so here I am, I'm like 20 and a half years old, and I am like trying to tell everybody in my life, like, oh my gosh, look at this. You need to figure this out. You need to know about this. Like, trying to tell everybody that I possibly could about this. And I remember I had one friend one day and he was like, hey, you should probably talk to people about this who are interested. And I remember being like, okay, I'm like preaching to all
Like
my,
people are like, enough. We don't
yeah.
want to hear it, right? Yeah.
And I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, I'm telling all my 21-year-old friends that like, oh my gosh, check this out. You need to know everything. And the reality is that like people aren't interested. So what I started doing, I was so obsessed with it. I couldn't believe I got sober. I felt peace. Like I was like, why is nobody talking about the subconscious mind in any program that I went to, in any rehab program that I was in any, and there's a lot of great stuff about those things. I don't want to like take away from them in any way, but you don't hear about the subconscious mind in 12-step programs or in
Right. Right.
rehabilitation programs or anything like that. So I was like, I'm going to tell people. And I definitely have a heart for sharing. So I just really wanted to share. So I would like take, money that I was making that I didn't have a lot of at the time. And I would rent library space and give workshops and have people come to the workshop. And I would just pay for the work to host the workshop out of pocket to tell people about this. I couldn't believe. And I was still in school at the time. And people would be like, oh, will you see us as clients? And I was like, well, I'm 21 and I'm still in school and like, and people were like, we don't care. This is valuable. Like teach us, tell us. And so I started working in client practice by accident very early, way before I ever planned to or thought that I would or
You
anything like that.
attracted it. Once you
Yeah,
healed and became in alignment, you
yeah,
attracted it. That's such a
definitely.
key point. That's where I am at my life right now. It's not forcing things. That's what we were taught to do. That's why our nervous system got so jacked up. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah,
what was that? Hustle society. I was just interviewing somebody last week. It's a hustle society, and relaxing is a privilege, and go, 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 and that's it. That's where it all is. Yeah.
100%. And it's difficult that way for people too. And there's so many downsides to being in that chronic state of sympathetic drive. And so yeah, so I mean, long story short, it was a very long story, but but I
Oh, very interesting
entered into
story.
that space. Yeah. And then I just kept teaching workshops and filling my client practice. And after a few years of working with clients, I decided like I had a big wait list of like 2 years and people were getting frustrated with me. And I was like, well, maybe I can like put some online content and make it on YouTube and give it to people on the wait list so they can feel like they get information that they're looking for in more detail. And so I started kind of like making YouTube videos about people's questions. I would get people to send in from the wait list like questions they had, and I would answer them so that groups of people could have them. And not even intending to start a YouTube channel at all. Did not think I would ever like. I don't even like social media very much. Like I was never thinking, oh, I'm going to be like a
But that's how
content
you
creator.
yeah, that's how you
Yeah.
reach a lot of people. I'm the sent you and I are so. Are you an HSP and an empath, by the way?
I would say so for sure. I also think that sometimes there can be like the wounded self-perception of that. I think that sometimes that's also like enmeshment and poor boundaries. And I've tried to learn to separate out the two. Sometimes I think those two things get conflated. But yeah, I mean, like extremely sensitive.
Yeah, but
And
I mean, you were
for all
saying when
the,
you were a child, you felt things. I mean, I like my mom used to say, you feel things so deeply. And back
for
then,
sure.
they didn't really look into this stuff because none of my brothers and sisters are nearly as sensitive as I am, which
Yeah.
even makes it more come to life, I should say. So now I see why you said you're so blessed to have gone through this. How old are you right now? May I ask you?
35.
Wow. So this is a while ago. So this was when you
Yeah.
were started your journey at 15, started really getting in the business like 21. And so you've been doing this for a while. And you know what? You're right. 15 years ago, I mean, I've always been a seeker. And I remember this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I think I was in my 20s. So I was always searching, but they didn't have a lot of information out there back then. Now they do because the internet and cognitive behavioral therapy and NLP, somatic. And let's just say we're going to be talking about attachment styles today, which is in romantic. Actually, you might need to correct me on that. Are these all? Because when I think of attachment styles, I know I used to be an anxious. And by the way, I took your test today, and I knew I was secure now, and I'm secure, which is amazing. I've done the work though, but it is referring to romantic relationships, right? Not platonic relationships.
So, primarily our attachment style, basically what happens is our attachment style is the subconscious set of rules that we've learned about love and connection. I like to think of your attachment style primarily as the relationship you have to yourself. It's your own limiting
Yes.
beliefs, the way you treat your needs, your nervous system. So it will spill into many aspects of your life. But we will feel our attachment unresolved wounds in the relationships where we feel most vulnerable. Because what actually happens subconsciously is we replace our relationship to our parents. Um, there are our primary attachment figures in childhood, and we replace that with our most vulnerable relationships in our adult life are our romantic relationships.
Hmm?
And so that triggers sort of it's the catalyst for all of the subconscious unresolved stuff that's happened
Yes.
in our childhood will often project into our romantic relationships. And of
Yes.
course, the less vulnerable you are to somebody, the less likely that the depths of those things will come up. You can save face in
Yes.
front of a stranger, versus somebody you're in a very deeply committed relationship with. And of course, you can imagine that existing along a continuum. So if you have a friend and they're your high level acquaintance, you might not have much of your attachment stuff show up at all because of your minimal interaction and lack of vulnerability. But in a really close, deep friendship, you may have your own versions of challenges in there, or abandonment fears that come up, or fears of being trapped, depending on what your attachment style is. And so you can still see it pop up in other relationships, but it will be the loudest and most prominent in romantic ones.
And yeah, it really holds up the mirror. And it's so true. If you want to see how much you've healed, get into a romantic relationship. It's like,
Isn't that the
I'm
truth?
good. I've got this. All of a sudden it starts showing its face again. Although, you know what? I can honestly say I learned about attachment styles, I'm thinking probably about 3 years ago. And I was amazed. I mean, I've always known about the subconscious mind. I have my master's in metaphysics. So, like I said, I've been searching, spirituality and things like that. But the subconscious mind, I mean, they say that your subconscious mind dictates basically 95% of your behavior. Your conscious mind's only 5%. So it's very important to get in there. Um, you know, let's see. So you're doing that through somatic and you're doing through NLP. Yeah, you have to rewire your subconscious mind.
Yeah, so the main focus of my work ends up being, and I guess I can give a quick backstory. So I started my practice and I wasn't working on attachment styles with people. I was working on their core wounds. So these big, painful ideas we acquire because of conditioning at a
Mhm.
subconscious level. So I'm not good enough. I'll be abandoned, alone, excluded, disliked, rejected, trapped, helpless, powerless, unworthy, unsafe, betrayed. These big, like, core fears that people will bring into relationships
Mhm.
and then into life. But I wasn't working them with people in a relational way. It was in a personal way. Like, hey, what are these big triggers that show up for you? Helping people rewire them at the subconscious level, helping them learn we all have subconscious needs. So helping people understand their own subconscious needs as personal drivers and learn to meet them as a form of self-regulation, doing nervous system work and somatic work to move from largely spending time in sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic, but specifically mostly ventral vagal in your parasympathetic branch. And I was focusing a lot there at first. And then a few years into my work, as I was in the work itself, I was single. I was very single. I was like, I'm not going to date anybody. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm healing. I want my peace. And a few years into my work, I met my now husband. So going on 11 years ago, and
Wow.
and I'd been working with people and busy. I was in school. I was working with people. It was crazy time. And I met my husband, and he um helped me see that I still had other healing to do in a relational way. So I felt a lot of peace on my own, but I realized like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not communicating very well. I'm actually not setting great boundaries sometimes. And I recognized that there were still things as a person that I had a little bit of work to do on.
Hey guys, okay, let's talk skincare. For most of my adult life, I had a hate relationship with my skin. I struggled with adult acne, discoloration, large pores, psoriasis, and fine lines. I swear, all that changed when I started using herbal face food. I mean, this stuff is powerful. We're talking the world's most potent antioxidant and anti blemish formula. And the serum is the number one anti aging serum in the world, made entirely from 100% botanical plants. No chemicals, no synthetics, 100% all natural. Whether you're dealing with fine lines, dark spots, sun damage, rosacea, psoriasis, melasma, or just want that all day healthy glow, Herbal Face Food has your skin covered. Literally. I've been using all their products for 3 years now, and let me tell you, it's like green juice for your face, only stronger. Remember, whatever you put on your skin goes in your body. So, this is a really important point here, seeing that it's 100% all natural. Give it a try. It's got a 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. You check them out at herbalfacefood.com and use promo code TINA20 for 20% off your entire order. That's herbalfacefood.com because your skin deserves the
To do on.
best.
And I realized, wow, I'm not getting into any of this in my practice. And so in first year psychology class in university about styles, of course, but at a very high level. And it talks about like, oh, here's the temperament of each attachment style, and here's some of the patterns as children that you may see as adults. It's like just tip of the iceberg stuff. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is crazy. The work that I'm doing with people on wounds, needs, nervous system regulation, these things I'm starting to recognize about how they have boundaries, the types of behaviors that they'll have, the ways that they communicate, these six major pillars. As
All
soon as I knew somebody's attachment style, they would fall into these exact pillars. So you would see like anxious attachment styles, they would always fear abandonment, being alone, rejected, excluded. Whereas as an example, the triggers of a dismissive avoidant would be like being trapped or engulfed, feeling helpless or powerless, feeling defective or like they were being shamed, feeling unsafe emotionally in a conflict or weak if they were too vulnerable. And so it was like, oh my gosh, tell me your attachment style. I already know your triggers that we're going to work on rewiring. I'm going to know your needs. Each attachment style tends to have very specific needs that make them feel fulfilled in relationships. Great. We can help you meet those needs in yourself and with others. I know the type of nervous system patterns you're going to have because all insecure attachment styles spend too much time in sympathetic nervous system mode. And then I know
wait,
your
say that again. All what attachment styles?
all insecure attachment styles spend too
It's
much time in sympathetic. They're
okay.
all in fight or flight too frequently. And
So wait, those would be like, hang on one second, because we're talking. I know what you're talking about, but
yeah.
people listening may not know what you're talking about. There's four different attachment styles. One is the anxious preoccupied. I never heard that. I just thought it was anxious. But we'll go through these. The dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant, and then the secure attached. Okay.
Yeah.
So which would that, you said all the ones who have the nervous system,
I can jump in if you want and give the four. Do you want me to give the four kind of like
Ye-
synopses of the attachment
yes,
styles
yes,
first?
yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're right, because for people who don't know, we shouldn't just jump right down the
Yeah,
rabbit hole here.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
like, what are you guys talking about?
So the work of attachment theory was originally done by John Bowlby out of Cambridge University, and later Mary Ainsworth kind of jumped in there. And it's one of the most originally studied bodies of work in psychology, but it was very incomplete because it was like, here's your attachment style, here's your patterns. And it was never like, here's how to rewire them, here's how to
Right.
change them. And so, unfortunately, people can end up identifying with their attachment style far too much as a label or a characteristic of who they are and use it kind of as an excuse that could block them from growing and healing. And yeah, and so I was really like, okay, let's
Almost
work
like
on
HSP or MBAV. I just
yes.
thought of that.
Exactly.
But I
And
think
so
that maybe it was the other way around. I think maybe my nervous system was so jacked up. That's why I became an HSP, or I don't know. Anyway, keep going.
absolutely. Or maybe you were enmeshed at a young age. You had to take responsibility for people's emotions around you, which led you to be
Yes.
hyper. Yeah. And so you'll see
I was
there's
tanked. I was the young of five, the youngest child of five. So yeah, there's
yeah.
something called tanked where you feel everybody's emotion. It all lands
Yeah.
on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll see that everybody has an attachment style first and foremost,
Yeah.
whether we are aware of it or not, and they are the number one determinant of relationship success. Quite honestly, you'll see the parallels, like the divorce rate mirrors exactly the rate of secure attachment. So, securely attached people make up roughly about 50% of the population. That's trending downwards slightly, and the divorce rate is about 46 to 50% of the population. So you see them work in actual parallel, which is very
You're
interesting.
saying the secure attachment style is 50% of the divorces?
According to the most in-depth data and research, they have no secure attachment style makes 50% of the population.
Okay.
And so the divorce rate being about 50% shows
Oh,
it's for all the insecurely attached people are more likely to fall into the bucket of getting divorced.
okay. That's what I
Yeah.
thought you meant. Okay. I was like, how
Yeah.
could that?
They have
Maybe I
an
should go
inverse
back to maybe I should
relationship.
go back to the ancient.
No, not that. You're like, wait, everything I thought I
I did
knew.
all this work. I'm finally the secure one. Okay. All right.
So, so you'll see that, and there are four attachment styles, as you said. So the first one is secure. For people who are less familiar, the securely attached individual grows up with healthy modeling in childhood for healthy communication, trust, boundaries. They know to understand their needs, and a big part of this is actually that they get psychologically what we call approach-oriented behaviors. So and it sounds small, but it has such a big impact. It's that parents are attuned to the child growing up. They're able to be present, notice when the child is feeling distressed or emotionally off, and then actually create an approach-oriented behaviors to try to connect with the child, see what's wrong, and soothe them. And what that conditions a child to feel is like, oh, I can rely on people, I can trust people, I'm worthy of love and acceptance when I'm feeling good or when I'm feeling not so good. And I can go to people with my emotions, and thus it's safe to be vulnerable and to communicate. And so we have this child that then grows up with all of these conditioned beliefs about vulnerability and trust and communication and worthiness. And so they end up having just way healthier conditions to start off relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so as adults, they do well in relationships. They also statistically report not just having the longest lasting relationships, but being the most fulfilled in those long lasting relationships, which is very significant.
Mm-hmm.
Because what good is a long relationship if you're miserable? And so, we have that. Yeah, and so securely attached people make about 50% of the population, showing that that number is trending downward. However, a lot of people are working on their attachment styles nowadays, which is good news. Then we have three insecure attachment styles, and in a sense, they exist along a continuum. At one end of the continuum, you have your anxiously attached individuals who usually grow up with generally, for the most part, well, we call it real or perceived abandonment. So real abandonment would be, God forbid, but a parent passes away when you're a child, or a parent leaves the home, doesn't come back. These are like these, very strong senses of abandonment that can happen. Then we have perceived abandonment, but trauma research shows that a lot of repeated medium to low T trauma over long periods of time has a very similar impact on the wiring of the brain from a neuroscience perspective as like one big T trauma. And so what happens is in anxious attachment styles, what's more common is that they get a lot of perceived abandonment. So it can be things like they have a big family, they're the youngest child, they're kind of fighting for the attention of the parents in a big family. And it's like, okay, love is there sometimes, but I'm competing for it. It's constantly taken away. And it can cause this fear of like abandonment of that connection, of that attunement that the child is needing. It can be that we have parents who are very loving, but they work all the time. So love is there, then love is taken away. Love is there, parents are gone again, love is taken away again. Or it can be conditions where one parent's really warm and one parent's really cold and not very present. And so that juxtaposition, yeah, is the love is there and love is taken away. And it conditions this mind to constantly be on the lookout for fearing love being taken away. And so some of the biggest wounds are abandonment, being alone, excluded, disliked, rejected, not good enough. These are huge fears of this individual.
Yes.
And before we get to the other ones, I'd love to hear like if any of your experiences there.
So my doctor says that we don't die from old age, we die from inflammation. And I couldn't agree more. When I found him a couple of years ago, I was not in great shape. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and he found out it was all related to my gut. Did you know that 90% of your dopamine and 90% of your serotonin are made in your gut? Okay. So I have been on all of his products ever since that day. But the ones that I want to talk to you about are the alkalizers. He's got one for coffee and he's got one for alcohol. What do? They make the beverage from acidic to alkaline, which is so important because if your body is too acidic, it is a breeding ground for disease. So you want to keep your body in an alkaline balance. So with the coffee, it comes either for black coffee or it comes flavored as a creamer. I love the flavored ones. Vanilla is my favorite, but I also love the hazelnut. They're all delicious. One scoop, and it does not break your fast for one. It changes your body, your coffee from acidic to alkaline, which you don't have to feel guilty about drinking coffee anymore. And the one for alcohol does the same thing. 5 drops into any alcoholic beverage, and it will make it from acidic to alkaline, meaning no hangover. It doesn't change the taste. It doesn't change the color. And best of all, it doesn't change the buzz. You can still drink and enjoy yourself, all the while knowing that you're not causing inflammation in your body. So go to www.getoffyouracid.com and use the promo code Tina Marks
There.
20. Uh, that's me completely. And I had small T's, but I had big T's too. Like when I was 9 years old, my brother was killed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it goes on from there. So I mean, I had a father that was like nothing was good enough, and he was like a rageaholic. Hit me a couple times. Didn't like put me in the hospital or anything. And it's funny because I've said this before. It wasn't until I think probably about 2 years ago that I decided to write down my traumas, and I was amazed. I mean, not the little ones. I'm talking about the big ones. And I
Yeah.
think there was like between the well, like let's say between the littler ones and the big ones, there was like 18 where I left off.
Yeah.
And I never, I was always this person like fight it off, just fight it off. And now I look back and what I was doing to my poor self. I mean, I was pushing all that down and I, have to be stronger. And I was always, you're the strong one. You're the strong one. It's like I was never felt safe to be just soft or weak. I always had to be doing something. I mean, up until honestly, the last month or two, that's the way I was. Now I can relax without feeling guilty. I've completely reset my
Um,
nervous system. And I don't think the nervous system is talked about enough. This
yeah.
is where everything stems from.
Yeah.
And you're probably familiar with IFS, right? Internal family
Yes.
systems.
Yeah.
Gabby Bernstein, when you were talking, I was thinking about it because I'm listening to her book, Self Help. She was talking about that, like when her 6-year-old Oliver gets upset. That's exactly what she does. Exactly what you said. What is it? What do you do? You need me to do something right now? And back then, I'm a lot older than you. People didn't know this stuff, but this interview is so important for any parent out there. Not
Mhm.
just, I mean, because when you heal yourself, you're healing the next generation.
Yeah.
Because, like people, I'm never going to be like my mother. I'm never going to be like my father. But unless you correct this, you will be. And just like you said, when we're searching out our romantic partner, it's usually the primary caretaker that abandoned us or, we had the most trauma with. And mine was my father. So,
Hmm.
I've been single. Nobody believes this, but I've been single for almost 18 years now. It's not like I haven't been on a date or I haven't dated somebody for like 2 months, but when I say in a relationship, I mean like a year or two.
Mm.
And now it's interesting because I thought I would ask you about this too, because back then, most of that time, I was like, when am I going to find him? When am I going to find him? When am I going to find him? And it would be so, the feeling was so strong that it was painful. Like, how am I going to do this with that, that attachment? I needed somebody so bad. Well, now I've flipped onto the other side. And I'm going, do I really want somebody? They're going to occupy a lot of my time, and I like doing the things the way I like to, so I've flipped the switch. I wouldn't say that I'm an avoidant because like I said, I took your test this morning and it
Yeah.
says I was secure. I guess what the good feeling about it is I just feel so safe within my body. And I always thought safety came from out there, from a person,
Mhm.
a place, a thing, money, a career, all that. And that's where I've landed. I'm like my own best friend now.
That's
That
so
that's
nice.
where I think that's where I probably will find a healthy relationship.
That's beautiful. Yeah, definitely. So I will say two things. So the nervous system work is great. It's so important. We will constantly have to be regulating our nervous system unless we rewire the core wounds at a subconscious level that create nervous system dysregulation. So those two things have to go hand in hand, which I'd love to get into in a minute because
Yes.
that's so important. But also, I have to tell you the two other attachment styles. I would be curious
If I'm
when
an
I tell
avoidant.
you the other two if you were fearful avoidant,
I
not
was thinking about
anxious.
that this morning. I was.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me about
It
the
sounds like
first
you're
one.
definitely secure now, but I am curious because you have a few patterns that tend to fall more into the fearful avoidant category. So just from what you shared, so it raised a couple of flags for me. So we'll talk about it. So the other end of the continuum after the anxious is the dismissive avoidant. We'll do the fearful avoidant last.
Okay.
Dismissive avoidance, they are kind of the opposite of the anxious. They grow up with a lot of childhood emotional neglect, so they get a lot of negative reinforcement across time when it comes to being in a committed partnership. So they end up just being like, or sorry, getting closeness or attunement from their caregivers is just not there. So this negative reinforcement across time, they're like, well, I'm just not getting my needs met. So I'm going to minimize my attachment needs to feel better.
Mhm.
And if I convince myself I don't need anybody, I don't need attunement, I don't need to rely on anybody, then that keeps me feeling safe. And so as adults, they'll then really try to not commit, not get too deep. They'll keep people at arm's length. They'll be slow to warm up. They'll kind of cut. cut out of there and run when things get serious at all. And they really struggle with vulnerability. They don't like conflict. They don't like a lot of emotional, vulnerability between themselves and other people. They struggle to help co-regulate other people's emotions. And their biggest core wounds and triggers from a we call it integrated attachment theory, which is all about the core wounds and where these overlap. Their biggest core wounds are defectiveness, the fear of being like shameful or broken at their core, the fear of being unsafe in a conflict emotionally. They feel very physically safe and quite independent, but they really struggle with emotional safety in a conflict. They just shut down. They don't know what to do. And then also the fear of being not good enough, they struggle with as well, but then trapped, engulfed, a sense of being powerless or helpless if they have to be vulnerable, and this idea that they're weak if they open up. So those are their core wounds. And as adults, they'll be very avoidant and they'll
Yeah.
often struggle with stonewalling at times. They shut down a lot, they retreat a lot in a conflict, and they struggle to really work through things with somebody else, and it can feel difficult for people to be on the receiving end of that. And then the last one is the fearful avoidant. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the disorganized attachment style. And the fearful avoidant, they grow up with more chaos. So you'll see usually a more challenging environment. More big T traumas will be in there along with smaller T traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what you'll see, and I like to use this analogy. Let's pretend somebody has a parent who's an alcoholic. And
Mm-hmm.
let's say it's mom is the alcoholic. And so one day mom comes home and mom's drinking, but she's in a good mood. So she's nice. So you're like, oh my gosh, love, connection with mom. And you feel this sense of closeness and it feels good. But then another day, mom's drinking and she's in a bad mood. She's angry drunk and she's cruel. She's mean. She's very critical. She's very unpredictable or scary. And so other days you're like, oh my gosh, like mom's terrifying and I need to keep my space. And other days, mom is sobering up and she's in a good mood again and she feels badly about her behavior and she's being kind. And other days, mom's sobering up, she's detoxing and she's in a terrible mood. And it's like you never know what version of somebody
To
you're going to get.
expect. Yes.
Exactly. And so while anxious attachment styles, they're chronically attaching by trying to maintain proximity, trying to get closer all the time. Dismissive
So they
avoidance.
can kind of keep an eye on it and right, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Because if I'm too far away, somebody's going to pull something on me. Yeah.
yeah. So anxious attachment styles are very like, I always want closeness. No matter what, I'll try to get closeness. Dismissive avoidance are like, I want space. Fearful avoidants are like hot and cold. They don't know what they want. They're hot one day and they very much feel anxious. A lot of fearful avoidants originally think that they're anxiously attached and they're constantly trying to get proximity and closeness. But then when people actually get too close because they've had these really terrifying experiences around
It's
love,
one of these.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Come
They're like,
closer,
yeah,
go away. Come
exactly.
not too close.
Exactly, exactly. And when they fall in love, um, it often feels bittersweet. It's hard for them. It's like this, I feel love, but now, oh my God, the more I love you, the more you're just gonna hurt me and the scarier it is. And there's this sort of bittersweetness, there's this push-pull. They flip-flop a lot internally when they're in relationships. And honestly, being in a relationship before you heal ends up feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing. I don't know what I want. And there's a lot of hot and cold. But usually your anxious side will be much louder because you feel anxious when the person's pulling away. Whereas the
Mhm.
avoidance side will be more, you don't feel that same degree of anxiety in your body. So sometimes you don't realize that you have that avoidance side. And a lot
Mhm.
of fearful avoidance, because of that hot and cold dynamic, they have very roller coaster relationships. So big ups and downs and often recreate a lot of their childhood experiences as adults by choosing people who feel familiar and safe, but often
That
choosing
makes
people.
so much sense.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, because the ones that I would push away were a little bit too even, and yeah, I would interpret that as boring, right?
That is like, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that over the years. Like, oh, these people who are secure, they're boring. And that's because your nervous system's familiarity zone is in chaos. And
Right.
so the normalcy, the stability feels like, wait, where's the spice? Where's the chaos? But
Right.
chaos only feels safe because it feels familiar. It's not actually the
Exactly.
play. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what people have to know. It's because, our brains are always trying to conserve energy. That's
Yeah.
even though why do we keep repeating the same behavior over and over again? We know we shouldn't be doing it. It's because our brain is always going back to what's familiar.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, real quick, let's talk about something we all deal with, but never really think about. Electromagnetic radiation. Yeah, EMF. It's everywhere from our phones, laptops, Wi Fi routers. even our smart fit fridges. And no, I'm not saying ditch your tech. I mean, who could? But I am saying you can protect yourself from unnecessary exposure with Aries Tech. Backed by peer-reviewed studies and independent testing, Aries Tech makes compact, science-backed EMF modulation devices that help reduce the effects of electromagnetic radiation on your body. Rather than blocking the EMFs, Aries Tech's products work with your own body's electromagnetic field to balance out the effect. Yes, you heard that right. Our body is made up of energy, and this works with your own energy to balance out the effects. I've got one around my neck, one on my phone, and one in my living room. And honestly, it gives me peace of mind knowing I'm doing something small that can make a big difference over time. So whether you're working from home, gaming for hours, or just scrolling your feed in bed, protect your space. Check them out at ariestech.com and use the code TINA25 for 25% off your order. That's AIRES tech.com because your body deserves
Yeah,
better.
exactly. And so what you'll see sometimes in fearful avoidance is sometimes it's actually a very big theme for fearful avoidance specifically, is that, and it depends on like the context that, I don't know obviously all the ins and outs of your dating experiences, but APs will have a lot of like chronic dating, but then not following through in relationships because they're usually choosing unavailable people because that's what's most familiar. Fearful avoidance will tend to have very long stints of actually being alone, trying to be alone, taking space, being hesitant to get into relationships because they're like, it's too chaotic for me. Yeah. So strike me when you said 18 years of being single, that's like such a fearful avoidant thing to say if that was your history.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually have a date tonight. And everybody's like, "Are you looking forward to it?" I'm like, I don't look forward to dates anymore. I mean, I guess I'm disappointed so much. And well, now, it's interesting. I used to be the one, do you like me? It didn't matter if I liked you. It's like, you know, always feeling in my body like, oh my God, nervous and not feeling comfortable or safe in my body. And always like, are they going to call me before I even got a chance to know them to see if I even wanted them? It was, again,
Yeah.
like choose me type thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel that. I'm completely like the opposite end now. Now it's like, um, I could take it or leave it. I wish I could get a little bit more excited, I don't know if that's a protective thing happening inside of me. Or
No, it sounds like you did the work to become secure. Like it sounds like you've done a lot of the nervous system work, a lot of the deeper work so that you actually feel this sense of stability. And that's like, it's a healthy thing to feel this open optimism towards dating,
yeah.
but low expectation. Like I'm going to see what happens
Yeah.
and I'm going to go in and yeah.
And let me tell you something. You know what I'm attracting right now? Anxious. These, these guys, it's like back up, slow down. I mean, I don't want more than two dates maximum in a week when I'm first getting to know somebody.
Yeah.
Like the old me was that, yeah, well, if we like each other, let's see each other every day and every night. And it's like there's no way that's just not happening for me. And I'm getting that. So do you think do you, anxious do go for avoidance? I do know that, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's so yes, absolutely, that's true. I personally, if you want my honest answer, I think that you used to be fearful avoidant and you healed your anxious side and not your avoidant side. So fearful avoidance have an anxious and avoidant side. And
Ah,
and I think there's so what you would see is you may just I think you've done the healing, you'll feel a lot more secure, but you may have remnants of your avoidant side.
and it's
And
going to be
it
very easy for me to turn around and walk, is what you're saying, because I
Yeah,
still
and
remnant.
maybe to be a little bit too you might be a little extra critical or flaw finding at times or a little too particular as a self-protective mechanism, which would be totally
No, not
which would
me.
be totally fine. I mean, but
God, wait
if
till I
you
tell my brother this because I'm going, you're such an avoidant. You're such an avoidant. And it's like, now I'm going to be like, you better listen to this podcast.
I've just seen so many times, and it's very common for fearful avoidance. They heal their anxious side, and you feel immense relief,
Yeah.
and you feel at
Oh,
peace on your own, and it's just like
yes.
wow. But then fearful avoidance still have a bit of that avoidance side, and so you'll be less dysregulated, and you'll feel lots of improvements there. But you may just have extra walls and boundaries more than you recognize, and the way through that, I mean, it's just doing exposure work on vulnerability, opening more, seeing people twice a week at the beginning is fine. That's
Right.
normally secure pacing. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But just if you notice yourself suddenly feeling like a lot of people around you are anxious, it may be that you just have a little bit of that avoidance in there still
It
from the
may be the
fear-avoidant
avoidant
side.
in there. Oh God.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you do one-on-ones? We're gonna get into your programs and everything. Do you do coaching
I
one-on-one?
do not anymore. I'm so busy with our programs at PDS, but I have a great team of colleagues I refer to if you want me to connect you with anybody or anything like that that really go into all this stuff in a lot of detail.
Okay, well, let me talk about your programs because I don't know if I need one-on-one. I mean, maybe I would just need one of your I mean, tell us about that because I was going to ask you, you've got this certification if somebody wanted to become a coach like you,
Yeah.
or then you got the boot camp, but you've got your membership program and you've got so many modules in there.
Yeah, lots of courses. So I love this stuff. I eat, live, breathe this stuff. I love to create. I love to share. So when we started PDS about 6 years ago, I had a batch of like 10 courses that I had already taught in live workshops over years and years. So I was like, oh, easy. I'll record these courses. And then the workbooks for them were already ready. And then I did 2 new courses a month for a few years. And we have about 60 courses in there, and they're all about 2 hours long, everything from like boundaries. It's called the Personal Development School. It's personal development for your subconscious mind. And one of the big sets of courses in there are your attachment healing programs. So there's 6 pillars of actually rewiring your attachment style. I find that without all of these 6 pillars, we don't completely get to secure. We get like mostly there or partially there or so pillar number one is rewiring your triggers. So those big things, those fears of being abandoned, and when you go to fearful avoidant, I actually never said the fearful avoidant triggers. Fearful avoidants have a lot of those like abandonment, feeling alone, rejected is big, disliked, can be there or not good enough. But they also have the avoidant core wounds, fear of being trapped, fear of being seen as shameful, fear of being helpless if they rely on people too much and then somebody's not there for them. And they have a big betrayal core wound generally. So this big fear of betrayal. So each attachment style has their kind of unique core wounds. Those are
Hmm.
going to be our biggest triggers in relationships. And what's really interesting is if we only do nervous system work alone, which is pillar number 3, which we'll get to, if we only do nervous system work alone, it's like always this reactive cycle. So let's just say, for example, somebody has a core wound of being abandoned and they don't actually rewire that at the subconscious level to like actually leveraging neuroplasticity to change those neural networks, then what ends up happening is you feel abandoned, you feel afraid, and then you do nervous system work and somatic processing and it helps and you move through it and you can increase your window of tolerance and do these different things that help you manage it better. But like we don't want to just manage things, we want to rewire them so they stop coming back.
Right,
And
exactly.
so, yeah, so the subconscious mind and nervous system work have to pair together. If you do one without the other, it's often incomplete. So the big first pillar we go into is like, what are your core wounds? How do we leverage neuroscience to actually rewire them? So that's pillar number one. Number two is we need to know our needs. Meeting our own needs is a big part of also self-soothing and regulating our nervous system. So the things we need from others, we actually also need from ourselves in healthy ways. Sometimes we seek validation the most outside of us when we're the most critical of ourselves. And so we need to learn to balance those scales. And we talk about different strategies for how you meet your own needs.
Hmm.
Number 3 pillar is somatic processing and nervous system regulation. And it's really about making sure that you're getting out of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn and into ventral vagal mode in the parasympathetic nervous system branch. And we go into how to do that and leveraging things like polyvagal theory to really change our nervous system function. So those are our first 3 pillars, and those are about oneself. Those are about I'm rewiring my internal world. And then we have 3 more pillars, and that's about how I do in relationship with others. And that's how am I communicating? So many people communicate with what we call negative framing. They say, you don't care about me, you're not talking to me enough, instead of, hey, I'm feeling disconnected. I would love for us to spend more quality time together. Let's plan a fun date this weekend. And when we negative frame, we don't get heard. And so a lot of times when we're insecurely attached, we have maladaptive communication skills. So it's all about let's go into the communication. Let's fine tune our communication. There's 4 or 5 major little frameworks we can use that will just make communication so
Holy
much
shit.
easier.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and goes a long way. And then we go into boundaries. Boundaries have to be rewired at the subconscious level. Far too many people try to approach boundaries from an intellectualized space. And they go, oh, I know my boundaries. I should set them. And then in real time, when you're supposed to set them, you don't. You panic, you go back to your old patterns, and you're like, why didn't I do it? It's because you need to engage your subconscious mind in the process of boundary setting to actually move the needle. And then the very last pillar is behaviors. How do we behave in relationships? Do we stonewall? Do we raise our voice? Do we shut down? Do we numb out? Do we do these different things as an attempt to deal with our internal world? And there's very easy tools to rewire our behavioral patterns that really move the needle as well, both personally and in relationships. And so those are 6 pillars. And that's, those 6 pillars. I know it's really in depth, but it's actually not a lot of work. It's like a 90-day type of thing. And you go into each of the 6 pillars and
Okay.
really get
That's
deep. But
right. That's right. It's only 90 days,
yeah,
right?
that's what we recommend for people. Yeah.
That would be how many hours a day would you, it's all on video, right?
Yeah, it's all on video, but it's not hours and hours a day either. So there's 6 courses. There's one for each of those pillars. And then what it does is it takes you through, okay, this is the neurosense of your subconscious mind, how to rewire it. This is the neurosense of understanding your own needs in relationships and how to meet them yourself and communicate them better. So we go through all those 6 pillars. Each course is about 2 hours in length, and it
Okay.
comes with a daily rewiring exercise because rewiring takes place across 21 days. But the
Hmm.
daily rewiring exercises take 2 to 3 minutes a day. So they're very simple, they're not crazy, and they really work. So, for example, we have people through our program who've completed the program. They give us a 99.7% NPS score, which is like your satisfaction score with the program. So
Right.
people are like actually healing and becoming secure. And this is across about 60,000 people we've had come through at this point.
60,000 people you've have gone through the,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. It's a lot.
That's it. Uh, I'm blown away. I don't say that very often. I
Thank
really am
you.
blown away because, like I said in the beginning, I've, interviewed different. This is all one-stop shop
Yeah.
because I thought I had
That
it
was the
made.
goal.
Huh?
That was the goal for sure. Yeah.
That's the goal. Absolutely. And then we are going to be offering my audience and listeners a promo code for this 90-day membership program. And the promo code is Tina30 and they'll receive 30% off.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm gonna have to look into that myself. Okay. Well, that sounds like something that I'm gonna definitely do. And I know other people. Uh, I really think this is the name of the game. This really
Thank you.
it's in one nutshell, how to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
It
And
really
how
is.
to have, because it's a relationship to yourself, your
It's the
attachments.
relationship that you can't, it's so the cliche, you can't love somebody else, but it's true. You cannot have a relationship if you, I was so disconnected. I didn't have any relationship with myself. I didn't even, now, yeah. This is fascinating. This is fascinating. Okay. So, and it's called what is your website called again?
Personaldevelopmentschool.com.
Personaldevelopmentschool.com. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I want to value your time because I know you've got a hard stop, but it's been a pleasure having you on. And I didn't even mention your name. I just thought about that.
Thais
I did
Gibson.
this. Yeah. Is it
Thais, yeah, it's pronounced with like a
Thais?
T
I
like
was going to
that.
say
Yeah.
Thais.
That's okay. I get
Thais.
that all the time. Yeah.
Thais Gibson, by the way, everybody. I've never done that before, but welcome, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We will be back next week with another exciting episode. And I will definitely be joining your course. And then, I'm going to have you on again. And then I'm going to talk
We'll
about
track the
the
progress.
difference between now and then. And we'll see if you're right about, I have a feeling you're right because this is your work, but that would be a really interesting follow-up.
I love that idea. That's fantastic. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. And everybody, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. It's Tina Marks TV. And you can listen to this on Spotify and Apple. That is under Transparent with Tina. So I hope you all have a great day and we will see you next week.